Hello, friends, and welcome to another RobCast. I am here in the back house with beloved new friends, Vanessa and Robb Ryerse.
That's right.
And, okay, you guys hang with me on this story because Vanessa has the microphone, and I'm going to interview her, and then she's going to hand the microphone to Robb, and I'm going to interview him. So... and it's all going to start to come back around, right?
That's right.
So
we
welcome.
Hope so. Thank you.
You all live in Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Okay. I talked to Robb and Vanessa I did a tour this summer of the Bible Belt, and they told me a story about what happened when Vanessa heard an episode of the RobCast that came out in January, the week of the inauguration.
Yep.
The week of the inauguration, I had Zach Exley on the podcast. The episode is called Zach Exley Has a Plan to Save Us, or the U.S., depending on how you look at it. And his premise was that Congress has like a 13 or 14% approval rating, but like a 91 or 92 something percent return rate. So Zach talked about how he'd been a part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, the Obama campaign, going way back, and how he was like, why don't we get real people who are actually running America, teachers, entrepreneurs, etc., and have them run for Congress to represent us, because that seems like it would be closer. So that was that podcast. And you heard that podcast, and something happened. So we're going to get to that, folks, at some point. You can tell I'm so excited. I just want to jump all over this story, but we got to be patient, because when you hear it, you're going to be like, that's a story. So... let's back up with you, Vanessa, and go. You and Robb moved to Arkansas 12 years ago.
12 years ago. Yeah.
And why did you move to Arkansas?
Well, we decided after 10 years in traditional fundamentalist churches that we were 30 and we did not want to die fighting over whether or not Robb needed to wear a tie to Sunday evening service or not.
The big battles.
Yeah. The real life-changing things that we had given our lives to. We decided we were going to start a very different kind of church. And so we chose this beautiful place, Fayetteville, Arkansas, to start the church for a bunch of different reasons.
What are those? For those of us who aren't familiar with, this is Northwest Arkansas?
Northwest Arkansas.
For those of us who have no idea what that means.
Oh, it's so great. Okay, so you have to understand where we were coming from. We had been in the middle of Michigan, right in the middle of the mitten. And while we were there, that was right after September 11th, and a lot of their industry is cars and, a lot of other things. And basically, the town where we lived, adults were working at McDonald's. That was like a good job. The economy was just so bad. And so we knew we needed to be, if we were going to start something new, we needed to be someplace where people were open to new ideas, and they couldn't be afraid and be so financially strapped that they couldn't try something new. And that's the way it was in Michigan. We also knew that we wanted to be close to a university, because we felt like we were going to try some new ideas, and we wanted to be around people that were open to new ideas. And we felt like being in a university town would make a difference. So the U of A is there. Go Razorbacks. So we figured that was a good thing. The other thing was we wanted to be in an area of the country that was growing. And at that point, Northwest Arkansas was on track to be the size of Dallas in 10 or 12 years. Of course, the economy bottomed out for a while, but even where we were, it was still really, really growing. And it's still growing. It's an amazing area. So there's always new growth and new buildings and new ideas and new things happening. Of course, we're in the backyard of a couple of big corporations. Walmart headquarters is in Bentonville, which is just real close by. And then Tyson Chicken is there. And then a big trucking company called J.B. Hunt.
Does that contribute new ideas?
It does, actually, because Walmart has a situation where every company that you see represented in a Walmart, they have an office that has to be represented. And so that office has to be staffed, and that those people are coming from all over the world. So when you go to the square in Bentonville to the farmers market, you're going to see a global crossroads of all these different cultures, because
Northwest
all
Arkansas is filled with people from all over the world. I did not know that.
Yes, it's amazing. It's fantastic. We love it.
So you start this new community.
Yes.
And you have a bunch of ideas, like an art project.
Pretty
You're
much.
like, we got these ideas we're going to try.
Yes. Yes.
And what happens?
Initially, it did not go all that well. Shockingly, they were not like, excited and greeting us there with 1,000 people to come to our church. We, it's the South, and there were a number of mega churches in the area. One of them was actually really nice to us, and they gave us some place to live while we were trying to sell our house in Michigan. And we lived in that house it was supposed to be 3 months. We were there for 8 months. They took really good care of us and were really kind. And they said, listen, we'll fight over the last unchurched person in the area. But since there's plenty of unchurched people, we'll support you for a while. So they were super nice.
That's the weirdest conversation ever.
I know.
Okay.
Initially it was really slow. We had this model in place that we had learned at another mega church, and we were supposed to follow kind of this path, and then it was just going to explode like a rocket. And we were going to have 1,000 people. We were going to break the 100 people barrier by so many months in. Well, of course, that didn't happen, and so Robb was working a regular. Well. See, we had been in ministry our whole lives. So all he had on his resume was Bible college this and seminary that. And so nobody wanted to hire him because he didn't have an experience doing anything else. So he got a job teaching at a Christian school part-time.
He had no skills.
No. Well, he had plenty of skills, just not on paper. So he got a job at a little Christian school. That was part-time. And then he also worked at a Christian bookstore, which you said I can say whatever. So it was called Family Christian Store. And I say it was neither family nor Christian nor bookstore. So he worked Sundays, he worked holidays, he was gone all the time. And I was in this little house in the middle of nowhere with 3 little kids. We only had 1 car. He was gone all the time. And then for the first year, we were getting ready to plant the church. We had barely any friends. I didn't get a chance to see anybody because we were working all the time. And then once the church started and there were 20 people that were showing up, we were in a movie theater at the time, I kind of hit this thing where I said, we've got this house in Michigan. We're going into debt. Each month, another $1,000. I mean, we're up to our eyeballs in debt. This is not working. And I said to him, listen, I'll give this a year, and then I'm done. I'm out. This is not working.
And at this time, he's the pastor.
He's the pastor.
And you're basically doing just as much work, but in this world, where is a woman's voice in this world?
Childcare.
Okay, so in this world that you are in, a woman is not fully empowered to be everything she's here to be.
No, I'm totally, this is totally my world. I'm totally invested. I'll do anything for this, anything for the kingdom of Jesus, right? So, whatever sacrifice I have to make, I'll do this. So if that's having people over for meetings to try to talk about what we're doing, or just holding our family together while he's off to work, or, and setting up for services and making coffee and just, being the hostess and, pretty much what I had done for 10 years.
But you say then you are no, 1 year.
This is crazy. Because at some point, this is going to kill our family. And I can't imagine that God wants our family to go down the toilet on, for the benefit of this imaginary church that we've dreamed up, right? So,
I just love how for the benefit of an imaginary church we've dreamed up.
Yes. Yeah.
So for you, the whole thing is come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
And then what happens in that year?
That night when I told him that, we had a huge fight. We stayed up all night long, and he said, "Okay, you're right. Our family matters, and this is all I know how to do. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So you're more important. Our family's more important. So, okay, let's see what happens." So the very next week, we were getting ready for the service and making our little coffee pot. And about 2 minutes before the service started, 50 people walked in. And they were from a church that had folded. Suddenly without any warning. They were another church startup, and they didn't have any place to go, and so they would just call one another up on a Sunday morning, okay, let's go try this place. I saw a sign for this. Let's go try it. And so they were like, okay, let's try you out. Let's go see Vintage Fellowship, whatever that is. And these 50 people walked in, and we just kind of looked at one another like, well, this could work. So not all of them stayed, but some of the best people on the planet stayed. And the church kind of made it.
He had another job.
He had another full-time job. And so what he did was he kind of parlayed Christian school and bookstore. He had bookstore knowledge, so he knew about books. So then he got a job with a used textbook company that also had it was sort of like, what is that called? It was called God's World Book Club, but it was kind of like do you know, like the little magazine the kids get? Like
these names are unbelievable.
What is it called? Scholastic Book Club.
Like,
you know, those little folders your kids get, like they come home from.
Like,
yeah. So it was like that, only it was Christian books. So they had a division that was that. It was all little Christian books, and that was his gig. And then that company folded, but they're like, you're really good at this. You seem to have a head for this. So we're going to keep you. We don't even know what we're going to keep you for, but you just hang around and try to learn whatever you can, and then we'll find a spot for you. So he did that for a while. And then he taught himself how to do all kinds of stuff with the textbook industry. And so he ended up at the head of their division of, I don't know, private online bookstores for private schools. I guess that's what it was.
And you are more and more interested in what's happening in this community, or less and less? How are you and your role and your involvement in this thing as it progresses?
Oh, I'm totally invested. I mean, vintage is the thing. This is what we do. This is what we're here for. This is what matters. And then we just figure out ways to, gig mentality to get the bills paid so we can keep doing this.
And then what begins to happen with your voice?
Well, so I kind of found my voice through a funny medium. I found what I used to do when we lived in Michigan, and then I started doing it when we went to Arkansas just to pay the bills, was I'd go around and buy up antiques and things from garage sales, and I would sell them on eBay. And then Etsy happened, and every mom could have a little Etsy store. And so I found the Etsy store. But what was happening was, in Michigan you could find all kinds of really great antiques. But when you got to Arkansas, that wasn't an area of the country that had a lot of wealth of just regular people. So what I would find was a lot of broken stuff. And so I've always liked dishes, and I would buy these dishes that were 100 years old, but they've got a crack in them or whatever. And so I'd always thought, well, there's got to be something you can do with this. And so I was able to parlay that into making broken china mosaics. And so then I was doing craft shows and kind of just finding my voice as an artist.
What's a broken china?
A broken china mosaic. It's sort of so a lot of the mosaics around here are like the little squares of tile. And that's kind of like the Spanish influence or whatever.
Yeah.
But broken china is you can take a plate and cut it up into pieces and create patterns and mosaics and design
that you would hang on the wall.
You can put it on anything. You could do walls. You could do. I mean, the kids joke I'm going to mosaic their underwear, but literally cake plates and birdhouses but then you're okay, well, how do you take this sort of sweet grandma kind of thing and make it interesting? So then you start writing funny things like this sucks on a silver platter, so then all of a sudden
you would take a silver platter, write this sucks on it
in broken plates.
Broken plates, and then sell it.
Yes.
Okay, so you're trying to figure out how to make money, and you're like, I should go around to garage sales, buy broken china. I should create new designs with shrapnel of grandma's china, including writing "This sucks" in old china on a platter, and somebody somewhere will buy it, and somebody does.
And they do.
How much does somebody pay for the "This sucks"?
$45.
So you have it's not even a side hustle. It's I don't even know what that. It's so awesome, and you're paying some bills.
Yeah.
There's a feisty, scrappy thing to you that's starting to come out here.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So
that is a great story.
Okay, so the thing is everybody's oh, we love this is so cool, but it's not scalable, right? This is not a business where I can oversee
Right.
a sweatshop of people making
Right.
these, right?
Go
This
out
is
to the
not,
garage
like,
sales
right.
this weekend and come back
Yes,
and build
like,
my empire.
This
Got
is
it.
like, you're sort of limited. And then you start to realize, like, okay, physically my body can't do all of this either. Like, and then on top of that, then we very unexpectedly got pregnant with our last kid, who was 10 years younger than her siblings. So that was like
And you
sort
have
of a surprise.
You have the oldest to the youngest
Yeah.
in your family is 15 years?
Yeah.
You have a 15-year gap. Okay.
Yeah. So
Noted.
So, I mean, basically it comes down to, like, listen, you can't breastfeed and break china at the same time. Like, these are not activities that go together.
I think we've
well.
all had that. We've all come to that awareness at one time or another.
You can be as creative as you want to be, but this is not going to work. So, I knew that having this baby was going to sort of change the trajectory of what I was thinking about. That, like, okay, so what opens up from here? And it started to dawn on me, the reason I was doing all of this, the reason I was making this art, like the reason I was exploring this way of being expressive and, like, using these broken things, like, it was to pay the bills so that we could do this thing that was the main thing, and that was the church. And so that was the thing that mattered the most to us, and I began to realize this is what your whole life has been about. From the time you were a tiny little kid, this is what you wanted to do. You wanted to be in the life of the church, nurturing people and doing this. And so all of these other things are just a path to get to that. Mm-hmm. So we started, I mean, there would just be times where it was really important to us as we kind of grew in our awareness of what the world needed. We realized that the world needed to hear more women's voices. And so Rob would say, well, why don't you try and speak? I'm like, okay, I'll try it. Okay. Lead this group, lead this class. Like, okay, yeah, I'll try that. And I began to realize, like, I have something to offer. There's something to say about the experience, about your spiritual life that is feminine. And there's no way that these guys can say anything about it because they don't know what it's like. They don't know what that's like. They can't see that. They can't feel that. They don't know what it's like to nurse a baby and realize that has something incredibly spiritual to teach you. Like, yeah.
I always think about it like the Bible opens with this poem in which the divine, the male and female reflect the divine. And so there's this divine masculine, this divine feminine. And if you only have one, you don't have
You're missing
the full image of the divine.
Yeah.
Like, it's that straightforward.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. So you begin to do more and more and more, and then what?
Well, so it dawned on us that one of the things that we thought would be really interesting is to give the church the opportunity to ordain me, because that would be a cool experience for them, and it would also give me the sort of confidence of having this group of people.
And how would you explain ordained to somebody who's never heard that term? That's like a community saying, this is one of our leaders. Is that how you would describe that?
Yeah, it's an opportunity for them to corroborate. Like, this isn't just somebody who wants to take over the mic and, like, take control. This is somebody who we actually trust and believe in. And we want to say that in a formal way so that other people recognize, like, she didn't just skate into this. She's got 15 years, 20 years by that time of this world, and learning and growing and reading. And we want to corroborate that. We want to say, yes, we want to agree with her that this is where she belongs. This is what she should be doing. So
the church ordains you, and you become the pastor.
One of the pastors. Yeah, we're co-pastoring. And at first Rob was like, I don't know, co-pastoring, that's kind of weird. And I was like, why not? We co-parent. Why not? I mean, we've been functionally doing it all this time, right? Except you were getting a paycheck and I wasn't. And that was the thing. Like, I was kind of having this. Well, I had this, like...
That's the great injustice.
Well, I had this crazy conversation with my college roommate from Bible college, and she and her husband were trying to plant a church, and real similar situation. And so she was saying, well, if I've got to go and get another part-time job so we can make this work. If I could just get paid to do what I do at the church, then we could make it. But, they won't do that because I'm a woman. And I just, like, that glass shattering moment.
Yes.
Where your brain just explodes, and you just think to yourself, like, oh my word, like, fundamentalism, all of this, like, women can't be in leadership thing, they don't care if you do the work. They just don't want to dignify you with a paycheck.
It is such a primal injustice. It is such a deep, grievous sin against half of the population.
Yes. And I realized,
and once you see it, you're like,
oh my word.
Right.
And then I realized, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Otherwise, I am letting my church look like they don't believe in this. I'm letting my church look like that they don't support women.
I'm participating in the oppression.
Yes. Yes. So I have to give them this opportunity so I can make honest people out of them.
Oh, that's so excellent. And then does he, so you're co-leading.
Yeah.
Does he start to back away?
Well, yeah, he's going to have to back away because he has something else that comes up.
So he's working in some other job. He's leading this thing with you.
Right.
But you're like finding a strength and a voice and a leadership spine, and it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fun. And that's the amazing thing. He's always wanted this for me, right? It's not like I had to convince him to be a feminist.
He's not threatened. He's like cheerleading. He's like, go.
Do it. Absolutely. Yes. This is fantastic. Yes, obviously we should do this. This is, I can't believe we didn't think of it sooner. This is brilliant. So yeah.
And are there, he's in the room here. We'll hear from him in a little bit, but are there things that he hadn't been doing or hadn't been doing well? And when you stepped into leadership, you were like, let's just, you know what I mean? Were there things where you were like, how sad ass is this job he's been doing in this area?
Oh, he works so hard. He's terrible at responding to emails. So everybody's getting their questions answered.
So they're really basic things you're doing, and people are like, you might as well have struck gold.
Well, because he works a full-time job, so he doesn't have the flexibility, right?
Right.
So there's all these things.
We don't want to be too hard on him.
Yes.
Was there a moment when you did something and somebody was blown away, and it was a 101 thing, and you're like, wow? You said responding to emails.
Well, yeah,
was new territory.
Or even listen, how about if I call the air conditioning repairman for the building and get that taken care of so that there's air conditioning, because it wasn't working and he doesn't have time to do that, but it just keeps slipping through the cracks. Come on now, I can do this. Why did we not do this before? This is crazy.
So you're doing this, and then should we skip ahead to you and you're driving along down the road now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So I meet you, and when I first met you, you tell me the story. January, you're driving down the road in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in your minivan.
Yeah.
And you're listening to the RobCast.
I listen to the RobCast.
And you're listening to Zach.
Yeah.
And
I think I had another one of those glass shattering moments where I thought, okay.
And what is Zach saying, and what are you hearing, and what does it provoke?
Well, I'm listening to it on the same day as Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
And I'm we've spent how many months feeling kind of sick about, I don't know, I don't feel good about how the country's going.
Yeah.
But what do we do? And everybody's sort of wringing their hands, but there something about the way that Zach explained it. He's such an idea guy, and he cast this idea, and all of a sudden I saw it like an artist sees things, where you see the whole picture and think, okay, I can see how these pieces go together. This could work. And I felt hopeful because it was these are actions that we could actually take.
And how would you describe the action? How would you summarize the actions he's saying that are possible to take?
Regular people with a track record of showing up and doing good work, who are reliable, who are decent people, who care about their communities, having them get elected to do this job, to be representatives.
Not beholden to corporations, special interests, actual representing, real people representing real people.
Yes.
And something within you was that.
That could actually work. I think that could actually work is what I was thinking. I thought, I can't wait to show this to Rob because he loves politics. He's always loved politics. And so I'm curious to see what he'll say, but I think this is what he should do. We're looking around all this time thinking how can we help? How can we stop this crazy? What can we do? And none of the other things that were popping up made sense for us, but this made sense. These are all things that he knows how to do. These are all his skill set already. Like, he knows how to learn new things. He can speak in public easily. He loves it and enjoys it. He understands politics and loves it. Like, he has served his community. He has been so faithful to all these things, and the community knows that he is a good guy. Like, this just makes sense. I was just like, and the other thing about it was that, like, when Zach talked about post-partisan, that made so much sense to me, because the church that we started, we call it, we found this language is post-denominational, that it's getting beyond these sort of labels that we had been stuck in that somehow are not representing us anymore. And we had said, like, we've been Republicans our whole lives, but this is not like that. This isn't Republican. What is this? Nobody's representing us. And so when he said post-partisan, that, like, you come together, I thought, we did this. I know how this looks. I know how this works. Because you had, like, God doesn't have a party, right, or a denomination. Yeah. So you had already sort of in your spiritual work already lived this. Yeah. So when it was articulated to you in the political sphere, you're like, oh yeah, we've already done all this work. We know how this works. Yeah, I can see how this would totally work. So you're driving home. Are you thinking? Do you go home and say to him, I think you should run for office? Or do you go home and say, just listen to this episode and tell me what you think? Or how did you do it? I handed him the phone and said, you have to do this. No way. Yeah. I handed him the phone, like, just do this. And so. The phone meaning hear what Zach was. Where my podcast. Like, got it. Yeah, handing it. Yeah. So he listened. Mm-hmm. Did you watch him listen? No, I think I was nervous because I was afraid that there was something naive about me thinking this, and I was afraid he'd be like, honey, this is why this isn't going to work. You didn't think about this, or you didn't think about that, and he didn't do that. He was like, this could actually work. I could see this. And I saw that, like, creative spark on his face where he totally could see how this would work. And he got on board. Because normal mortals running for public office would just send a shudder down the spine. Yeah. Like, no way, never, I can't even, like... Oh, we would never have done, no. 99.9% of us, no. I'm assuming, even listening, would be like, run for public office? Are you kidding me? No way. Be a politician? No way. Like, we wouldn't even know where to... It's just a giant hairball of ambiguous terror. Yeah. And why even bother? Because, like, politics is gross. Like, and you're doing this church thing, that's supposed to be good enough. Like, why even... We're already changing the world. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Should we go to him now? Okay, What else do you want to say at this juncture? Or should we just go to him? I think you should go to him. Because I like talking to you because you're really fascinating. I think you should go to him. Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, here we go. You hand him that mic and... Ladies and gentlemen, the aforementioned Robb Ryerse is in the back house. Hello. Hey, Rob, how are you? Honestly, I could have talked to her for another couple hours. Yeah, she's great. But that's the stories. We have to see where this goes. So you hear this and you're like, I should run for office. Well, not exactly. I mean, I did come home from work one day and she held her phone out at me and said, you've got to listen to this. You've got to do this. And so I listened to it and thought it was really interesting, and, have a lot of friends that, listen to the RobCast and started having conversations with them about, is this whole brand new Congress idea something that would work? Is this something that makes sense? And I've got a good friend who is a lobbyist, and he listened to it and had 3 pages of notes about why it wouldn't work. And a lobbyist. Oh yeah, like fully entrenched in the system, like has a vested interest in the current system, and he was like, no, this is never going to work. Did that make you go, oh, he's probably right? Or did that make you go, oh, now I know it has possibility? Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm the kind of person that if you tell me something isn't going to work, that's motivating. So when people say our political system is a swamp, it's corrupt, it's all, and there's no way to change it, and anybody who gets into it gets dirty, and that's just the way it is, something within you don't go, oh, I guess that's how it is. Yeah. Why would we want to surrender... Why would we want to surrender, one of the most important things in our country to corruption?
I mean, it is corrupt. It is a swamp. It doesn't have to be that way. There is a solution.
So what do you do when you, like, what do you do next? So I don't even know how you do run for office. How does this work?
So the process with Brand New Congress is that, I had a bunch of friends listen to the podcast and learn about it, and they went on brandnewcongress.org and nominated me. And one day I'm sitting on my back porch smoking a cigar, minding my own business, and my phone rings, and it's someone from Brand New Congress saying, "Hey, this is Brand New Congress. Would you be interested in running for office?" And and that began.
Did you know they were calling Brand New Congress? I mean, nominating you?
I had a sense that it was happening. Yeah.
But you also know, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. And so that began like an interviewing process, and Brand New Congress gets to know me. I get to know them. Went through a process of candidate training, went through, a whole bunch of stuff, went to what Vanessa called Congress Camp, which was a couple of days of training with other candidates, and we spent a couple of days at Brand New Congress headquarters kind of working together and strategizing, and then it was a matter of launching a campaign and getting started.
And you announced. Mm-hmm. And were you nervous? I literally have like butterflies thinking about that.
Yeah. So there was a couple of things.
I'm like jumpy just thinking about, hi, and I'm running, what does your t-shirt say here? 3rd District of Arkansas, U.S. Congress.
Yeah. There was a number of things. One was, Vanessa had to be completely on board. It was, I say to her now, I'm like, there will be a time in the future when I will be super busy and I won't be home, and you'll be mad at me, and I will say all of this was your idea. This was, like, don't blame me. You put me up to this. But she needed to be on board. The kids needed to be on board. The oversight team at our church needed to be on board completely. This was not something I was going to do without them understanding that this was something important. And then really the last hurdle was my boss. I was actually most terrified about talking to my boss about it, and saying, hey, listen, I said to him, I said, I think I'm going to get involved in some local politics. And he said, oh, you're going to run for office? I said, yeah. He said, what are you going to run for? And I said, Congress. And he's like, oh, it's like federal office? He's like, I thought you meant like county commissioner or something. And he's like, no, I'm going to run for Congress. So that was kind of the last hurdle. And then, we made the announcement, and that was on a Tuesday night. We started the campaign. The next day, my phone did not stop ringing all day. And so much so that I woke up the Thursday morning to an email from my boss saying, "Hey, did you work yesterday?" Because I was so busy responding to media and answering questions and that kind of thing that I didn't. I should have taken the day off of work because I didn't really get any work done that day. Yeah.
The system as it exists, somebody holds this position that you're running, this spot that you're running for. I remember you telling me that this person is funded in essence. Yeah.
So my opponent is an entrenched establishment Republican. Is a guy by the name of Steve Womack. He's up to be the chairman of the budget committee. He's fully entrenched guy. He's never had a primary opponent in the Republican primary. The last 2 elections, Democrats haven't even run somebody against him. He's never gotten less than 72% of the vote. He's one of these people that everybody thinks is just completely entrenched. And I've had people say,
which means unbeatable.
Well, I've had people say to me, like, isn't he really popular? And I said, no, he's not really popular. He's never had an opponent. And there's a difference because he's not actually real popular, but he's just never been challenged. Because in the party system, he was mayor of a town in our area. So when the congressional position came open, he ran for that. It was like next in line. He had put in his his time in the party, and so it was his turn.
Are there corporate interests involved in this?
Absolutely. So, we have, as Vanessa mentioned, Northwest Arkansas is home to some of the biggest companies in the world, including the biggest retailer in the world, that absolutely funds his campaign. So, there's a couple of things that he's known for. John Oliver did a segment on him on Last Week Tonight a couple of years ago, and it was all about poultry farmers and the poultry industry, and that's because his biggest donor is a poultry company.
He's the largest chicken company in the world.
Yeah, and he's known for his support of them because of his corporate donor. He's got Walmart donates to his campaign, and so he is the leading proponent in Congress for an internet sales tax. Federally enforced internet sales tax, which is one of those things that nobody wants. That. Does anybody want an internet sales tax? I mean, is this a popular idea with anybody? It doesn't help Arkansans. It doesn't help anybody. But his second largest corporate donor wants it because they are in the midst of a mortal feud with Amazon.com, and they figure an internet sales tax is going to make life more difficult for Amazon. So he, of course, pushes for that because his corporate donors want that.
Okay, you announce. What does the person holding this job think about you announcing?
Well, he was asked by the press, and he put out a real polite, a statement saying,
"This is the beauty of democracy. We can blah blah blah."
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I can.
A mutual friend who I know got a text from his chief of staff that just said, "Your pastor ... WTF." And then about
when you heard that, are you like, "What have I done?" Is
no, that made me laugh. No, about 6 weeks ago, he and I bumped into each other in Starbucks, and we had a very awkward conversation. He knew who I was, which I was happy about. That was
bonus.
That's a step in the right direction. He asked how to pronounce my last name, which that was.
That's a dig, is what that is.
Well, name recognition is important, and I suggested to him that we ought to have some debates or some voter forums, and he was not interested in that at all. So
for those of us who the idea of a debate is like our worst nightmare with a microphone, that for you is like good times.
Well, I take very seriously the idea that our elected officials, and particularly our congressmen, ought to be our representatives. That's actually what the job title is.
You said that like that was a new idea.
I know. Well, that's actually what their title is to be our representatives. And, frankly, my opponent, and I would say most of our congresspeople, aren't very good representatives of average, everyday Americans. And I think they need to be challenged on that. And I think it's really important that we have forums and opportunities to say, hey, listen, when you voted this way on healthcare, when you supported this initiative, when you spent that money in this way, you didn't have us in mind. You weren't taking into account real people. And the people that you cared about were your corporate donors. And that's a huge problem.
How did I remember when we met, you explained that you had to run as a Republican because if you were run as a Democrat in Northwest Arkansas, it would not work.
Yeah, so
explain that to me because I don't.
Yeah, so the idea with Brand New Congress, and Vanessa talked about this postpartisan idea, is that there are bright red districts and there are deep blue districts where, because of gerrymandering and other factors, that it's essentially a one-party system. So in Montana, a Republican candidate can body slam a reporter and still get elected. In Georgia, Democrats can spend $25 million on a congressional campaign and still lose because there are some districts that are just...
They go Republican year after year after year after year.
And that's not going to change. And our district is one of those.
So if you're going to make change and you're going to run realistically and pragmatically, you need to run as a Republican because otherwise it's just stupid.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Okay,
so,
got it.
so the idea with Brand New Congress is to recruit people who agree on certain principles and certain ideas and agree to a platform, but will run within their party. I'm a lifelong Republican who's kind of horrified at the direction that the party's gone. And so rather than just kind of stand back and complain about it or walk away in disgust, I've decided to try to make a change and fight for things to be different. It doesn't have to be this way. The Republican parties change and party platforms change. The Republican Party platform in 1956 included equal pay for women, included increasing the minimum wage, included a call for expanding health care and access to labor, labor unions.
Did.
Yes. Yeah, like
See, this is the kind of thing we should know.
Yeah, because parties change, and just because the particular leadership of a party at any one point believes a certain thing doesn't mean that that's the way the whole party believes.
So when someone's
it doesn't have
right
to be that
now
way.
that we're like, what is this person saying? Is like, I'm just giving you the traditional Republican perspective. You're like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
The traditional Republican perspective is actually much more progressive and interesting and fresh.
Exactly.
And helpful.
People say, well, aren't you afraid that you're going to be, labeled a rhino or Republican in name only? I said, no. The rhinos are the ones who have abandoned what the party used to stand for. The rhinos are actually the leadership now. And rather than abandoning the party, we need to fight. And I would say too, the Democratic Party is just as controlled by corporate interests as the Republican Party is, and there is a need for independent Democrats just as much as there's a need for independent Republicans. And the great thing about Brand New Congress is I've got friends around the country now who are running as Republicans and as Democrats, and we're on the same team even though we're from different parties.
Which is what we all want. Like, we all are like, could we get people who our shared common life together?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, this is so crazy inspiring. I can't stand it. So what do the there's a Libertarian Party, what do other parties think about you announcing?
I had a really enjoyable time with the Green Party a couple of weeks ago. I might end up being the first Republican in the history of the world that gets endorsed by the Green Party. But, they're in someone who's willing to, what I always say is what I want to do is I want to put people ahead of party, because the needs of people are more important than the party establishments, more important than corporate lobbyists and special interest groups. And there are people who agree with that across the board. There's independents who agree with that. There's Republicans, there's Democrats, there's Libertarians, there's Green Party folks. And so our campaign really is embodying this post-partisan idea of pulling people together from all sorts of different perspectives, kind of like we've done at church.
Wow, it's so interesting how your background is sort of giving you, built up all these muscles.
Yeah.
And then do you start doing interviews? Does it pick up steam? Does no one care? What's it like? Yeah,
so it's really interesting. There's initially there was a big media push, especially with local media, and did a lot of stuff. And then Fox News came to our house and did an interview, which was, Vanessa used to joke, she's got this joke that she says nobody cleans like company, because company's coming and nothing cleans like company. Nothing cleans like Fox News coming to your house. You get the place picked up for that. So they came and it's kind of leveled off since then. A lot of the campaign is about building relationships with people, doing house parties, sitting down with people and saying, 10 or 15 people at a time, kind of casting the vision, asking answering their questions, and trying to get over that hurdle of yeah, but I can't stomach voting for a Republican, especially at a time like now.
Yeah, right.
But building relationships with people and getting over those hurdles, that's the focus of the campaign right now is connecting with people.
And going around and listening to people, what's most surprised you?
That's a great question. The thing that has most surprised me, one is how just really starving for hope people are. People are most people feel a lot of despair about our political system. Vanessa mentioned, I've always been really interested in politics, and she's always been like really kind of cynical about it. Like, this whole thing is corrupt, and I've always kind of viewed it as a fun game that I've, have been interested in. And one of the things that she said, and I've had friends say to me since then, since they've learned about Brand New Congress, is that like, this is the first time that they've felt hope for our political system. And I think that there's that sense that people have that like things are broken, things are corrupt, and they really want something that can change that. And they're scared to to put their full weight down into it and actually trust that it's going to hold them. Yeah. To use an old sermon illustration, I think about trusting. I there's that sense of like they want to believe that this could work. They want to believe that this could make a difference, but they're not sure. One of my best friends said to me the other day, he's like, I just don't know, like if there's any hope. And people ask me all the time, they say, oh, doesn't every politician go to Washington like idealistic about wanting to make a change and wanting to make things better, and then like they end up getting corrupted? How will you not end up that way? And that's a tough question to answer because I'm not going to end up that way because I'm such a great guy. I'm uncorruptible. But the reality is that what we've got with Brand New Congress is an approach that will actually keep us from getting corrupted because we're not taking corporate money and we're not going alone. We're going together as a team.
There's a larger movement
exactly
that's locking arms, which is very different from just sending somebody into what feels like a lion's den and then wondering why they come out with their head chopped off.
Exactly.
Do you enjoy the interviews and the internet?
Yeah. My favorite thing that has happened so far in the campaign is getting to meet people. I love especially the house parties that we do where, I'm sitting in somebody's living room talking with, people and answering their questions, finding out what they're concerned about. That has been fascinating. And I have been so impressed with just the quality of people that I've met. Just the best people who are actively involved in making things better in small ways, and to hear their stories and to learn about that, it is really inspiring.
It's so interesting how the news chatter is so far from what it's actually like.
Yeah. Well, Ted Koppel, who I mentioned Ted Koppel sometimes, and like young people.
Is that Nightline?
Yeah,
ABC?
Young people have no idea who I'm talking about.
Legendary TV news person.
And
for everybody under the age of whatever.
I always joke about Ted Koppel because if I'm once I'm about 2 weeks beyond needing a haircut, I look like Ted Koppel, which is not a good look. But Ted Koppel once said that
if you know what Ted Koppel looks like, that's a really funny thing.
Google that. It's not. Yeah, it's not good.
Funnier when you Google it.
Yeah. So Ted Koppel once said that a plane landing is not news.
Yeah.
And like a plane crash is news.
Yeah.
And there's the unfortunate reality is that people doing good day in and day out is not news. Even though it should be, but there's nothing sensational about that. Yeah. There's nothing exciting about that. And our news system is so geared towards getting ratings and getting people to watch that they've got to have something big to talk about, and that often accentuates the differences. It accentuates the struggles and the problems and the pain that people are going through, rather than the really great things that are happening day in and day out all across the country.
That's really well said. So to contact you, learn more, how does that work?
Yeah, there's two things I would love to encourage people with. Number one is we are still actively recruiting candidates at Brand New Congress. If people are, you said in the RobCast, you said right now there is a mother driving a minivan somewhere in Alabama who's going to be a congressional candidate as a
Did I say
result of
that?
listening to this. Yeah, you said that. And I mean, you were close. It was a dad driving a Prius in Arkansas, but close. And I am now a candidate as a direct result of the RobCast. And so I like if people are
Just here
listening,
to serve. Just here to serve my country, people.
you don't know what you've gotten yourself into. So if people are listening and they think, man, this is something I'd be interested in, or like my husband, my wife would be perfect for this. I've got a coworker that would be great at this. My boss, my uncle, like if you know someone that would be a great candidate, and I would say parenthetically, especially Republican candidate, go to brandnewcongress.org.
Parenthetically, Republican candidate, because of the number of areas where if you're really going to move things forward, we have to go into those areas.
And we have a progressive agenda.
Yes.
With Brand New Congress. And so finding progressive Republicans is harder than finding progressive Democrats.
Got it.
So,
because it depends on where we're looking at in the country.
Yeah.
How do you realistically go in and make change? Well,
Exactly.
here, to go in and make change, you would have to go in wearing a Republican T-shirt.
exactly.
Got it.
Yep. So if people want to nominate somebody, brandnewcongress.org is the place to go to do that. The other thing is, quite frankly, all of our candidacies, but mine in particular, need support of people. We're not taking corporate money. We want to go to Washington and actually serve the American people, actually serve the people of Arkansas's 3rd Congressional District. And that means we're not taking money from corporate donors. We're not taking money from special interest groups. We need the support of people. If everybody listening kicked in $5, like it would be a game changer. And so,
wow.
I mean, very literally, it would be a game changer. Like my opponent right now has over $1.5 million in his war chest. He began running TV commercials last week, which for a guy who has never had a primary challenge, has never gotten less than 72% of the vote, the fact that he's running TV commercials 8 months before the primary indicates that maybe he's worried. But he could absolutely destroy us with how much money he has. We need the support of people who would kick in and help out. And if everybody listening donated $5, it literally would change everything. So it's Robb 2018. It's ROBB 2018.com. That's our site. That's it. Robb 2018. ROBB 2018. And then there's a little button up at the top that says donate, takes you to a crowd pack page where you can kick in, and that would be a huge help.
I'm interested in how my experience of the innovation curve is the people, like in Moneyball when Brad Pitt says, first people through the wall always get bloody. Mm-hmm. Listening to you, I'm overwhelmed with the front edge of the innovation curve. The people who are like, this isn't good enough and it has to change.
Yeah.
And people start throwing ideas against a wall and seeing what sticks. And all the normal securities and foundations and reassurances aren't there.
Yeah.
It might not work. Yeah, could fall flat. Yeah, it could be bust. Or 25 years later, all of our kids are going, what do you mean it used to be different? What do you mean politicians used to be owned by corporations? I don't understand. And you're like, oh, what do you mean women didn't used to be fully liberated to be whatever they're here to be? And I just kept thinking, what you are talking about, for every listener who's like, this sounds completely crazy. Yeah, so did a light bulb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So did the ending of slavery.
Yep. Yeah. People say to me, they say, well, can you win? And my answer, honestly, is I have no idea. I mean, we've done the math and we figured out what it's going to take to win, and the number of votes we need to win in a low turnout midterm primary is not nearly what you'd expect, and we think it's an attainable number.
Come on.
So yeah, we think we can win, but there's no guarantees. But listen, I would rather try. I would rather leave it out on the field and try. And if we don't win, at the very least, we can move the conversation forward so that the next time it's easier for the next person who tries.
Yeah. I love that. And there have been times, I mean, for me, it gets very personal in my own work where I'm like, I've worked very hard to try and give language to something, knowing people might not get this, but a couple might. But then down the road, this might have helped somebody take a swing at it. And then people really get it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I might go down in a ball of flames. Remember that guy? He wrote a couple books. They're all gone. You know what I mean? This stuff's for me very, but you might as well die trying.
Exactly.
And it may in some weird way have helped somebody down the road. And everybody's like, yeah, this is obvious. What's the problem? So good. Raise your glasses. I love it. Anything else you want to say?
I want to say thank you for having Zach on the podcast back in January. There was a day in January where I woke up and went to work and was doing my thing, and I went to bed that night thinking I might run for Congress, which is a bizarre thing to consider. Because like I didn't have any political ambitions. This was not on my radar at all.
Yeah,
I was just frustrated with the system like everybody else was. And so thank you for introducing us to this and getting this started.
I mean, that's beyond words for me. That's amazing. It's wonderful. It's so seriously having you two in the back house. It's so great. And I just want to add at the end, let's just right now take a moment and think about somebody somewhere driving in their Hyundai, their Kia, their Oldsmobile, and they hear this and they're like, my wife would do great in southwestern Missouri or whatever. I just love that thought.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grace and peace, everyone.